Hello everyone, it's Seth, probably better known as Saffron Olive, and it's time for another Instant Deck Tech. So as you know, Tuesday means it's Type 2 or Standard Tuesday, and today we got a super sweet mono white list, which is kind of a bit of an updated take on one of our budget magics, a different take on a budget magic deck from a long time ago. This one is mono white Trinketeer, basically a mono white Servo token deck. Comes to us from Simon Goodman, who took it to a top 8 finish in our recent SCG Standard IQ. So congrats to Simon on this finish with the deck. A quick reminder before we break down mono white Trinketeer for Standard. If you enjoy this deck and you want to see it made into videos, take a minute, click the like button, the subscribe button, leave a comment, anything you can do to support your deck, because whichever deck is most popular gets a shot at being made into videos next week. So mono white Trinketeer, named after Master Trinketeer, which is basically a Servo Lord. Yes, it can also pump up Thopters, but in this deck, it's a Servo Lord. The sweet thing about Trinketeer is not only is it a Servo Lord, giving all of our Servos +1/+1, it can also just make Servos that are 1/1s, but become 2/2s. Also, unlike some recent Lords we've had, it's not legendary, so we can stack these up on the battlefield, as many as possible, and potentially make our Servo tokens really big. And if there's one thing this deck is good at, it is making a lot of Servo tokens. So the plan is pretty much to go as wide as possible, make all of our 1/1 Servos into 2/2s, 3/3s, 4/4s with Master Trinketeer, and then beat our opponent down and win the game that way. We also have Angel of Invention, which is awesome for this deck. Not only is Angel of Invention another Lord, essentially, pumping all of our creatures, but it also makes Servos when it enters the battlefield if we wanted to. So most of the time, I think we're going to choose to make Servos with this deck, which means Angel is adding a total of 6 power to the battlefield, plus it's pumping up all of our other Servos, and like I said, this deck is really good at making Servos, so when Angel comes down, it's often going to be just pumping our team to such an extent that it's adding like 10 power, 12 power to the battlefield, hopefully closing out the game right away. As far as making Servos, we have basically every mono white option available, so working up the curve, we first have Servo Exhibition on two Servos for 2 mana, not a bad deal. Normally they're just 1/1s, but remember our deck has a bunch of ways to make them bigger, so they're a little bit more threatening in our deck than they would be in most decks. Glint Sleeve Artisan, a little weird, but technically it's making most often 4 power and toughness for 3 mana across 2 bodies, since our Servo's hopefully going to be a 2/2 thanks to one of our Lords, or maybe even bigger. And then we have Visionary Augmenter, which is kind of strange, but when we have a Lord out, it's actually pretty powerful if our Servos are being pumped up. Only a 2/1 on its own, I think we pretty much always fabricate with it, but making 2 Servos that can potentially get huge thanks to our Lords makes it a pretty big deal. And then we have Saram's Expertise, which can lead to some really explosive plays where we make 3 Servos, which, again, huge thanks to our different Lords, and then also play a Lord for free, like a Trinketeer, play a Servo Exhibition, a removal spell, which makes it a pretty explosive option. Then we have a few non-Servos to round out the main deck. Selfless Spirit is just really important for beating Wraths. That's one of the big concerns with this deck. If we're going to go super wide with Servo tokens, a Sweltering Suns, a Radiant Flames, a Fumigate really can ruin our day. And since we're mono white, we don't really have a good way of refueling, not a lot of card advantage, so super important there. Thraben Inspector, just a great 1-drop. If you're playing white, you just play Thraben Inspector, because it's almost too good not to play in basically any white deck outside of hardcore blue-white control with no creatures. And then Declaration in Stone is our removal spell. We also have some sweet value in our land. So Westville Abbey gives us the ability to flip our 1/1s and our various Servos into a 9/7 lifelinking indestructible. So I think this is our primary finisher. We can definitely win by just going wide, but if that plan's not working, we're hoping to Westville Abbey and just turn our Servos into this huge flying, really hard to deal with threat. Chef at Dunes gives us another way to pump our tokens. Only a 1-of. I would almost like more of them in the deck. I think the way this deck looks, I think could easily support 4 copies of Chef at Dunes. The downside of paying a little life now and then, I think is definitely worth it for the upside. Because this deck goes so wide, we just want as many ways to make our Servos bigger as possible, and Chef at Dunes is a nice low opportunity cost way of doing it. And then some planes, just to help us cast our white spells. As far as the sideboard, we kind of break it down by what we're fighting against. So Authority of the Consuls for mono red primarily, a way to keep the hasty creatures from coming into play and beating us down because they enter tapped, also gains us a bit of life, very good in that matchup. Oketra's Last Mercy can reset our life total from 5 or 3 all the way back up to 20, also good in the Ramanamp red matchup primarily. Then we have Solemnity to deal with the energy decks, which are super popular at the moment. Fragmentize to deal with Mardu vehicles, other artifact-based decks, and then getting into the Trials and Gideon's Intervention are a little weird. These are mostly for like big creatures, or Gideon's Intervention can also deal with specific non-creature spells. If we're worried about a Planeswalker, for example, like Gideon Ally of Zendikar, or worried about, I don't know, an Aetherflux Reservoir, something like that, Gideon's Intervention is the best way for our mono white deck to just kind of catch all, deal with all that kind of stuff. Ulamog the Ceaseless Hunger, you name it, Gideon's Intervention can take care of it as long as we get it down beforehand to name the right card. And that is mono white Trinketeer for standard, and that's our instant deck tech for today. So thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I will talk to you soon. Thanks for watching the video. If you enjoyed it, help us out by clicking that like button down below. And to keep up on all the latest and greatest, click that subscribe button. And don't forget to hit that bell icon to get alerts whenever we have new videos. And if you want to, check out some of our other sweet videos here and here.